It's getting cold in here.
All right, here we go. It is January 18th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about privacy, more privacy, and something about a camera, I hear, because this is the iMore Show. Joining us this week, I'm afraid to say that Georgia Dow is out, but it's not my fault. I promise you. We have long since made up. We are best friends again. Everything's fine. Everything's good.
They get weekend visits with a lawyer present the entire time.
Oh golly!
I hear the feud with Daniel Bader is ongoing.
Yes, that never ends. Bader and I always on different pages, but I'm not on a different page with the one and only Lori Gill. How you doing, Lori?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing peachy keen. I think we're both getting caffeinated, so we're good to go.
Yeah.
We are also joined by Renee Ritchie, all the way from cold Canada. How you doing, Renee?
Hey, we're struggling real hard to survive. We're building ourselves igloos and fighting off polar bears with hockey sticks. I was just that from Jim Carrey.
You're saying that, but I bet there's some people in your town that are like, yeah, that's what I'll be doing later today.
It's interesting because I have a friend in California who was talking about how there was like a little bit of rain and everything's gone to hell there because of it.
It's true. We don't know how to handle weather at all.
How about you, Russell Hawley? How's the weather where you are?
We've got a little bit of snow on the ground, like not quite an inch, and it's all like starting to melt away. So it's that weird transition where you got kind of like green popping up through the snow. It's really nice to kind of look outside every once in a while, but not super nice to be outside.
Yeah, wow, the sludgy slop part of it.
Yeah, I was wearing two shirts too. I think it's a two-shirt Maryland day.
This is a sweater. I wear sweaters now. This is a new experience for me.
Nice. I've got my cardigan on, so I think we both got the sweater.
I'm doing the hoodie
notification. Yeah, we got some hoodies, a cardigan, sweater. It's great. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So we're here. We're ready to get rocking and rolling. Tim Cook.
Wait, but before we start that, let's talk about the new case.
What? Yes. Okay.
The new battery case.
The new battery case. iPhone XS, iPhone XS Max, and iPhone XR. What? All three of them have the battery case option? Yeah. Tell me more about this. Why does my iPhone XS Max get a battery case? What?
Because it's earned it.
Got it.
I mean, clearly,
right? Like they never made it for the plus size phone, and people like me who had plus size phones were always salty about that because we need extra battery life too.
Yeah, for your Pokemon Go.
And that's the thing is that I think maybe Apple originally was thinking not everybody wants a battery case. And then they put out just a battery case for one option. And everybody's like, whoa, wait, this isn't fair. We want that too. And they forget like anything, if you're an Apple fan, anything Apple makes, you want. You just want it.
Well, and beyond that, like, really, like that's true. But beyond that, I've never, ever heard somebody be like, oh, the battery on this thing is so great, regardless of what device it is. Everyone could always use more battery, just everyone.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, there have been times because honestly, with this phone, the XS Max, more than any other phone, I've paid more attention to battery and charging. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just I'm more aware of it now. I don't know if it's because of wireless charging and how it pushes less, power into the device. And so maybe every time I'm charging, it's not as much as it would have been if I had taken the time to plug it in. I don't know, but I have paid more attention. And I don't have an issue working from home where, the battery is super low and I've got, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to talk on the phone or whatever, or I can't have anyone communicate with me, but I have paid more attention to it. And so, yeah, I think that there's certainly a market for it, if you will. And
camping Micah would love it. Like if Micah went away for the weekend with his iPhone and he didn't want to bring with him like Qi chargers and lightning chargers or whatever, battery case.
You don't even know, like, I'm so angry that Apple launched this after CES. Russell, like I carried around with me these like heavy battery bricks just to keep my phone alive. Yeah. And this would have made that so much easier to like, I wouldn't have carried around such a big one. I would have brought with me something that maybe only gives you like one charge instead of 3 charges, because this would have taken care of half a day's worth of battery juice that I would have used up. So yeah, it's like super exciting to have this for any device. Well, any of the new iPhone 10 series devices.
I agree with you, but for a totally different reason. I like Apple to launch it before CES because whenever Apple launches a battery case, the tech media elite gets so angry. Oh, it's ugly. Oh, you're paying a lot for the amount of battery and at the quantity of battery. And then by CES, they all realize it's the best battery case and start using it. And you can hot take shame them.
Well, it's especially funny there because Lori, I think it was at CES that was it Mophie got a lot of attention for a battery case for the iPhone that does wireless charging. And the one exciting feature there is that wireless charging was actually pass through. So if you put it on a charger, it would actually charge through to the phone as well, which was kind of clever.
Wow, that is clever.
But it's noticeably thicker than this battery case that Apple just made. Even with kind of the slope, the Mophie case, like just visually was larger.
Yeah, it is. So I actually got to go hands-on with the Mophie. It's the Juice Pack Access, and I got to hold it and it. So you see, kind of there's like it's pretty thin. It's a slim design, right? And theirs is too. Theirs is really slim for Mophie. They've really perfected it, but it's not as slim as this one. There's a lot more bulk on the backside. The front side does look kind of slim like that. It's thin, but then on the back side you're seeing like a little bit more girth up here for the Mophie version. So yeah, it's I was so excited about Mophie's new case, and then Apple launched this one like immediately. It was like, okay, Mophie, you're out the window. Sorry.
And you can see they went from hump to rump.
Mm-hmm. I much prefer that.
Does the new one? What colors does the new one come in?
Only black and white.
Black, yeah, same as the original one. The product
I saw that red, and I was like, I didn't see that. I didn't see there was a red one.
They'll wait, and then when everyone's got a white or black one, they'll announce the red one, and all of us suckers will buy it again.
Yeah, the look of it looks the same as it did before. Does that mean it was a design win for them? Like, how do you feel about that?
Look a little closer.
Yeah, so the design is definitely improved in my opinion because the gap up top. My fingers are never up there at the top, so I don't really care if it matches the thickness or not. But that thing down at the bottom for the original battery case, my pinky would slide off of that edge. And it was never like a big deal. It was just something I noticed when I picked up the phone that I didn't notice with other battery cases. So I like that this battery goes all the way down to the edge of the bottom.
And that let them stagger the lightning port out so they could get rid of the chin, which stopped it blocking the antenna. So they didn't have to put a passive antenna array in this version like they did the previous one.
Which I think is a brilliant design, not just for the antenna array, but having the lightning port sort of sticking out on the back like that, allowing us to use any lightning cable, not just Apple's lightning cable. I mean, we've all had this experience. We use cases or battery or not, and we can't fit anything but Apple's original lightning cable in it because they're too big or something like this. And this is right there on the outside edge, so you can use your Nomad cables and anything that you want. And if it's wider, it doesn't affect it. It still works with it. I think that's a super great design idea, and more than just for Apple's own genius way of doing things, which it is, but from the consumer facing point of view, I think it's a really great idea to have it kind of on the back side like that. But it's not all the way in the back. It's not, you can lay your phone flat and it won't affect it.
So Lori, I missed this in the announcement and I have not been able to pick one up for my 10S yet. Does this completely remove wireless charging?
No.
No, it's fully wireless chargeable.
So you're charging the battery, but it doesn't do the pass-through charging thing that Mophie does.
Yeah, no, it's super complicated. So Apple's got this thing they call Smart Charge. And I won't dive too deep into it, but it depends on how much power you're giving it. It will prioritize iPhone. If you're using a MacBook charger and you're getting tons of watts, it'll actually fast charge both at the same time. If you're using like a 5-watt iPhone charger and it's not enough power, it'll give it all to the iPhone until the iPhone gets to about 80% and then start splitting charge with the case again.
And this is something that only Apple's battery case is going to be able to do. This isn't like tech that would be licensed out to other manufacturers.
I don't know. It's Apple's power management software and hardware working together. So
yeah, if somebody else comes up with the same idea, they're all in on that.
That's super cool though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I haven't actually I just got mine yesterday. It just came in the mail yesterday, and my phone was already like 78% charged. So I haven't had like the full, you know, working it to the bone to find out how great the charge is, but I'm purposefully not resting mine on my wireless charger at all to try to really work it today and see how good it is. I can also say another thing I love about this. This does actually fit into my skinny jeans back pocket.
Oh, nice.
It's a little bit tight, but it's got such a slim design that you actually can slip it in your back pocket. It doesn't make it too big. It's tolerable for sure. I've been doing, since yesterday, I started sticking it in my back pocket because I want to see, everybody wants to know, will this fit in my back pocket? And yes, it's especially because of the way the bump doesn't start off right away. You know, you can slide it in slim side first and it goes right into the pocket.
Get it started and then go all the way.
Exactly.
I know people were super curious about that.
What's that?
It fits in my front pocket too.
Oh, gotcha. Front pocket too. All right. And then the buttons. I actually have never owned a Apple branded silicone case, but Renee, I think that you had said it's the same. There's the same kind of stiffness in the buttons, which I like it. I don't think it's too stiff, but Renee, I think
better. Yeah, no, I mean, Apple's buttons are always stiff, but like on the old battery case, they were molded buttons, which meant that you pressed on them and then forced your way through to the old one. This has discrete buttons. I keep getting
where it's like a softer wedge in between. And
are they machined like the leather cases, or are they?
They're not metal. They're plastic still, so they're not quite like they're not like metal like the leather cases, but they feel like those. They just don't feel metallic.
It's that same flexi concept where you're pushing in and the buttons actually give it.
You are pushing through, but there's not like an envelope around you retarding you from pushing through.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Right. So there's our quick hot take on the iPhone smart battery case.
I like it. I'm gonna wait because they're going to inevitably release a red one. And
yeah.
I want that.
So my big test comes tomorrow because I have an X-Raid invitation for 1 o'clock.
Oh.
And then the Phoebus event is at 2 o'clock. So that's 4 hours of Pokemon Go, and I want to see how much the battery case takes off of that.
Oh, this will be great. Please make sure you tell us how well it performs or doesn't perform.
What I'm curious about is that the 10R is already such a champion, and it adds even more. Like the 10R gets the biggest boost from the battery case as well. Yeah. So I'm figuring like on a normal person, it's going to go for days.
Yeah. I know. Actually, I was even thinking I might purposefully not charge my phone tonight because I'm sure that it'll last through tomorrow. So I'm not using it a whole lot right now, like outside of my home environment.
I did that yesterday, and I woke up with an empty case but a full iPhone.
Well, and that's kind of the dream there, is to get yourself to a position where the phone and the Apple Watch have roughly the same battery life. Because that way you're thinking about charging them both at the same time instead of having to worry about them separately.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I already tend, I don't know. I'm usually not in a position where I can't charge my phone overnight. But yeah, if there was ever for some reason that it didn't work out, for whatever reason, my phone didn't make the connection or what have you, then it would be nice to know that, okay, I don't have to freak out that, oh, I've got to be gone all day. I'm on the road or something and I can't charge it. So yeah, I think that's pretty exciting for folks that are looking for more battery life. And then the fact that it has so many different options in terms of the functionality and integration with wireless charging. So pretty exciting stuff there.
Yes.
Any last thoughts on the iPhone battery case before we move on?
I'm super impressed with it. I love it.
Excellent. Well, let's see how these trials go, and we'll see how Pokemon Go taxes that case and see what's going on there. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I want to tell you all about, no, not the sponsor yet. I want to tell you about Tim Cook's article in Time. So there's an article entitled "You Deserve Privacy Online. Here's How You Could Actually Get It." And in it, Cook sort of outlines a bit of history that's been going on where different tech leaders have been telling Congress, hey, here's what we really should be doing to sort of make consumer privacy protections better. And so there are all of these, privacy regulators that are listening and going, all right, what do we need to do? What exactly needs to happen when it comes to how our data is collected and how we have control over that data? So that's kind of something that's been in the works for a long time. And we've heard a lot about, these different tech leaders meeting to talk about this. But what was interesting, I think, in this Time article was the additional sort of idea that Cook puts out there, which is that there should exist a clearinghouse that, and Lori, you've talked about this before, which I think is
I'm pretty sure that Tim Cook is listening to the iMore show, and that's how he came up with this idea.
Because you've mentioned this literal thing. You have been talking about how you want people to be able to go online and log in somewhere and see what of your data is going where and who has been buying it. Because as was noted, there are these companies, these data brokers that will purchase your online usage data from whomever is selling it, and then we'll package it and sell it to other people. So people will come and say, okay, we want to do some marketing. We want to make sure we're targeting the right people. Let's go ahead and buy this data. That way I can better sell to, this certain group. People who are dog owners and haven't bought a new razor in the past 6 months. And that, for some reason, is the category that this person's after. They can, whittle it down to those people and market to those people. So these data brokers kind of exist in this space right now where a lot of folks don't know about them in the first place. And despite that, there's not a lot of attention being paid on them and not a lot of regulation going on. So Cook suggests Lori's idea of having a place where you can see your data going to these different places and be able to say, this is wrong and I want it corrected, or this is not something that I want to share and I want it deleted. And I personally think it's a great idea. Is it feasible? Let's chat.
So when it comes to feasibility, I think that if it happens at all, it's not going to happen for a really long time. And some of that's going to be because these companies don't want to lose their ability to collect and share our data with no restrictions. They're right now, my data is just being gobbled up all over the place, and they're just take, and they're making so much money off of me. And in return, I'm like, well, okay, now I get to have some free cloud storage on Amazon, or now, I can ask my personal assistant to do something for me, but in exchange for my very expensive self, or not expensive, but my very data-rich self. Mm-hmm. They're making tons of money off of me, and that's kind of I signed off on that. I knew that, and now it's like you're trying to plug that hole that it's a torrential, funnel that is just almost impossible to plug, because these companies know how much money they can make off of the unfettered collection of our data. And now people are asking for it to be restricted, and they're not having that. They don't want that. They're going to fight against any kind of regulation and restriction, because this is how some of these companies built who they are, is by their ability to collect and share this data with other companies.
I think the biggest problem with this conversation as a whole is our collective inability to think about how this data is being used. And I say that kind of as a culture, not us having this conversation here on the podcast. One of the biggest things that came from some of the more recent data breaches was the way in which the data being collected was being used. We think really kind of one directionally about data consumption and application. We've had this conversation before where we say something really kind of maudlin, like, you're taking my data so that you can serve me ad stuff. It is so much more complex than that. It is not the one-off transaction of serving you an ad that they think will be more relevant to you. It is learning how often you are walking down a particular street. It is learning what times of day you are more active on your phone for specific activities. It is not. A lot of times we can't even really properly articulate what this data is being used for, because it's not something we can even think of. And that's the real value of the data being collected. It is not something as simple as giving me a better, command for Siri. It is this mass, this mass group of data. The original purpose of Ingress, before Niantic spun off from Google, was collecting enough information to make walking directions more accurate. And that, like, describing that to someone is regularly kind of a mind-blowing thing. So it's really important when having this conversation to make sure that it's not limited to, you're just trying to serve me ads or sell me something. It is deeply more complicated than that. And that is a frustrating thing to come across. And I feel like that's something Tim Cook did a really good job explaining in this, and that it is not about the individual transaction. It's your digital person, as a collective whole. And it's something that Renee and Lori and I talked about a little bit during CES. Was this is the article that was written here in Time. I really wish Tim Cook had gotten on stage during CES and just read that document. When I saw it, I was just like, this is the exact thing that Renee and I were talking about, was, coming up on stage and just delivering that in an oral presentation, because he's exactly right.
The one thing that always still bothers me is that we've come to a point, I guess, in our common consciousness where we conflate data harvesting with data monetization, with data abuse, sometimes with just all sorts of other things involving data. And the collection of data in and of itself isn't bad. I mean, it happens all the time, all around us. It happened before the internet. I would like to say it'll happen after the internet, but I don't know if the internet's ever going to go anywhere. But it's what companies do with the data. And I forget who said it. Someone was reminding me this week that when Google first started, advertising was anathema to them. Larry and Sergey did not want to advertise, but when the dot-com boom busted, suddenly they had all these investors who said, you better figure out a way to make money. And just the best way to make money, given what Google could do, was to add an advertising component. And you see how Facebook, Roger McNamee, an early investor in Facebook, wrote a letter saying, I don't recognize this company anymore, because the goal of the product became the goal of the company. But I think we can separate these things. We can say that you can collect this information, you can use it for me. Maybe I'll even pay you to use it for me. But how you use it when it comes to other people, if you sell it to data brokers, if you let your employees, like there was that whole Ring doorbell thing, but there was also AT&T, selling it to bounty hunters. If you let people use and abuse it, then there will be harsh civil and criminal penalties. And then we'll hopefully force this really to be something that is used to our advantage and not something that ultimately used to our detriment.
So I think
dogs and flowers, Micah. Puppy
yeah, we wish this was puppy dogs and flowers. I think that people would potentially be quite surprised at how like your personal clump of data and usage that exists on the internet, that exists, in these data broker places put together, how you might end up realizing that this series of data clumps knows you better than you know yourself. And it's kind of like when we enable those, like, what is it called? Screen time, and these different services that allow us to tune in and track our own behavior. And by doing so, we are awoken to, oh my gosh, like I pick up my phone 12 times in an hour, or I'm in this app for blank hours a day. That's just like one small piece of the puzzle, but you hear people being surprised about that, because so much of what we do, we're kind of just doing as part of our daily, if we collected and stored all that information in our brains, then our brains could not be the awesome processing machines that they are. And so that stuff just, we filter that stuff out. It doesn't need to stay. But these different services that are tracking those things and building up these profiles of us, I think that is a pretty incredible and powerful and scary, potentially, thing that's happening to all of us who have decided to partake in these services and participate online. And I don't think that people are aware. Yeah, I think that Russell, you're absolutely right that most people are going, okay, so I get this app, and if this is kind of far out there, but somebody who's just like slightly had their eyes opened, they go, this app is free. And so I know they've got to make money somehow, probably. And so how are they making money? Okay, they're doing this data tracking, they're doing this, and then they can sell that or whatever. But that's kind of where I think most of the wokeness, if I can use that word, of this situation stops. It's at this like, oh, I do this thing, and then they figure out that the next time I'm on Facebook or Instagram, they can show me an ad for the t-shirts that I was looking at on Amazon. And yeah, it's not just that. And
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Okay. If there was someone, and there's no way to do this because we literally don't know who's using our data and what data is being collected, because that's not provided to us. But if there was somebody who could create a digital version of my being and made like a 3D version of my being based on nothing, the data that's being collected about me, my digital self would wake up at 6 o'clock every morning and turn on lights and check emails. Like, this digital self would move around my house. It would walk down the street. It would buy a cup of coffee. These are all things that it's being collected and shared. And it's like like Russell was saying, and like you're commenting on, it's not just that I sit in front of a computer and I click on, Macy's and look at a pretty dress, and then I get advertised dresses that are similar to that. It's that all of this data that I'm everything that I'm doing every day, anything that's connected in any way, is all being collected and shared. Anytime I ask one of my personal assistants for some sort of additional information, that's being collected and shared, depending on your personal assistant and how that's working out. But things like wondering what the news is like, or wondering what the weather is like, my digital self is participating in all this kind of stuff, and that information is being shared to other people. And it's almost as if, I think Renee put in his video about this privacy, it's like there's people standing outside of my window peeping in and looking at what I'm doing, and they're not literally there. They're invisible because this data is being collected from my phone and from my Apple TV. Well, not my Apple TV, but from my phone and from all the other things that I have, these services that I share my data with.
And that was one of his points. It's like when you pay with time, you see the clock. If I install one of Jerry's famous patent and unencumbered Linuxes, I see the clock ticking away. I know how much of my life that takes. If I pay something, I see the money leaving my account. I see it leaving my wallet. But we're all data billionaires. We have more data than anyone could ever use. We don't even think it has any value. So you don't see that transaction, and then you don't really think about it. If you had to see it animated on your computer all the time, it would be top of mind the way paying your bills any other way would be.
It's a really fascinating conversation especially when this comes around to Facebook. This is like a really common conspiracy theory amongst people who try to pay attention to the way that Facebook handles data, is that it's using the microphone in the app to listen in on you every once in a while, and how it's really scary that it can listen in on you every once in a while. I have to look at these people and go, no, the scary thing is that it doesn't need to use the microphone to gain that information. The information that you willingly pour into Facebook is enough. It does not require use of the microphone in order to gain that information from you. I look at the Facebook on this day thing, and on a regular basis, like, I'm like, oh man, I should get a haircut soon. And then I look at the Facebook on this day thing, and I was like, I have gotten a haircut on this day, the same day, for the last 4 years. Like the terrifying thing there is that Facebook knows that I am a creature of habit, and so starts giving me advertisements for the local barbershop the week that I normally plan that thing out. Right. So like that's the whole conversation there, is that it has very little to do with that kind of one-time transaction. It is a massive data over time that builds this profile. And a lot of us are creatures of habit. We get up and go to work at the same time every day. We have the same 4 or 5 restaurants that we go to. The gas station that we go to is usually the same gas station. Right. Our OPSEC is terrible. Right. So it is so easy to build a profile on a lot of people with that kind of information that microphone access is not required. We willingly pour this information into these services.
The one thing that was heartbreaking for me, though, there was this Vox article that had a typically Vox article sensational headline, but when you actually read it, it was this woman who had a loss, and it was devastating for her. And she went to Facebook, and the support she found there was amazing. It let her survive. But the entire time now, she's facing Cambridge Analytica and data abuses, and she doesn't know if she can keep using Facebook when it's become such a lifeline for her. And to me, that's the ultimate tragedy of Facebook, is that they built something beautiful and then made it terrible. And we need the beautiful thing. We need some alternative that has a beautiful thing without the terrible thing attached to it.
Right. Something that we pay for so that they don't need to steal our data. I mean,
or even if they were just like, even if it was just a fair, like, they didn't do all the dirty stuff. They don't have to do the dirty stuff. I'm sure they still make billions of dollars, not as many, obviously, but if they just said, we're running ads, we're not going to do anything programmatic. We're not going to try to make you feel sad by altering your news timeline. We're not going to try to monitor your habits. We're just going to show you ads that appeal to what you like. I would be okay with that because it takes the creepiness out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of something that sparked joy and then got sad, so just yesterday, I had a sad moment. We've talked about the Ember mug here on the iMore show before. It's an awesome mug. It is Bluetooth enabled, and so it connects to an app. And it has, depending on which one you get, there's a travel mug, and then there's like a handheld coffee mug, ceramic. And it's got a battery in the base and then a heater in the base, as well as like a thermostat or a thermometer. And then you can charge it, and then you can pour your drink into it, and then you can keep it at whatever temperature you choose via the app. So my coffee usually comes into the mug at 200 degrees, and I like to drink it at 140 degrees. So the app waits for it to drop to 140, and then it says, hey, your coffee's there. And then as long as there's battery in this thing, it will keep it at 140 degrees. Super awesome, right? Like people who take a long time to drink their warm beverages, it's a great thing. It was a little expensive. It was not a necessary purchase, but I went ahead and got it because I thought it was a pretty cool idea, and I loved it. Well, it ended up happening that the charging base that comes with it, it's got these tiny little pogo pins, and one of the pogo pins broke. And it was, at the time, thank you, Lori, it was $70 to replace the charging pad.
Cost of the mug.
That's the cost of the mug. They have since dropped the price to $40. And I was thinking about, in the future, not right now, but in the future, getting another charging pad to replace it. And so for a long time, the mug just went unused. Well, I decided to DIY it, and I got out my soldering iron and did some stuff and made my own little charging pad. Don't worry, it's electronically safe and sound. I'm not catching fire to anything. And so I charged my little mug up yesterday, and I re-downloaded the Ember app. And upon opening the Ember app, the first thing it did was pop up for me to give it permission to know my location while using the app. And I'm like, why does this mug that is just supposed to keep my hot drink hot, why does it need to know my location? I said no, obviously, and it popped in to a login page. And I'm like, login? I've never had a login to this before. And so I tried to circumvent it. Sometimes they'll have like a skip button in the top right or some way to just sort of go past it. Oh no, I don't want to create an account. No possible way for me to skip past that create an account screen. So then I made an account, and then it popped up a privacy policy. And it said, when you register an account, then we're going to collect your email, your location, the date you registered with us, your product's battery charge cycle and maximum charge time. And as you use your Ember product through the app, we will collect preferred warm beverage types, temperatures, and consumption patterns, including caffeine intake. We're also going to collect communications via the app that you have, as well as, again, your location, again, if I offered to give that permission. And then finally, automated technologies and interactions. So that means they're going to use their web server to automatically collect technical data about your equipment, browsing actions, and patterns. We collect this by using server logs and other similar technologies. There was, at the bottom of this privacy page, an opt-out button, which I was happy about. I could just say, no, I don't want to send this data to Ember. However, even though that opt-out button was there, again, there was no way for me to just use this device without creating an account. So at the very least, there is a tie between me as a person and this mug that I have. Normally, this would just be one of those situations where it's like, this really sucks, and I'm glad there's an opt-out button, but it is what it is. Like, since day one, this is how it's been. However, I used to be able to open the app and control the stupid mug without ever having to create an account. And I'm mad now that they've made it impossible for you to do so. Now, I talked about this a little bit before the show, Lori, and you realized that you had actually given permission for these things.
Yeah. So I bought my mug a little bit after you, so they clearly updated the app since I bought my mug, and I didn't even think about it. I gave it permission. I literally, while you were talking just now, disabled location permission. Signed up for it, didn't think anything about it, didn't go to their terms and conditions page. And the reason is that I thought, well, it's just a coffee mug. They're not collecting data from me for that. Like, there's no reason there's no reason for them to collect it. So there's no reason for me to worry about it. It's only after you explained all of the things that they're collecting, which I did not, I hadn't gone to their opt-out page or anything. It's not there and easy for you to find. It's not like when it says in here, sign up for this, and if you'd like to opt out of having your data collected, click here. It's not like that. There's no opt-out at all in the app, and you had to go find it in order to, you had to dig it up and find it in order to do the opt-out. It's not easy for you to see that. It's a perfect example of we just sort of take for granted that the people on the other end are, they have our best interest at heart. And I'm not saying that the company it will be doing nefarious things. That's not the case at all. But because they're not transparent with what they're doing with our data, we're making assumptions about what's not being collected about us instead of being proactive and making sure that we are aware of the data that's being collected about us.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about this, I think, at least for now, is one of the things that really kind of disappointed me. We being those of us here and on the internet are early adopter type people. And so we will gladly buy a white iPhone battery case and then go back and buy a red iPhone battery case because it's available and we want that one too. So I think that, those of us on this podcast are not afraid to spend money for things that we kind of want, even if we don't really need them. Every person that I've ever talked to about this Ember mug has always noted that $80 is pretty expensive for this, even early adopters who aren't afraid to spend money. So my point is, this is kind of an expensive product. And usually you have the issue where, so televisions are an example. A lot of TVs these days are smart TVs. And one of the ways that they make money so that they can charge less for the television is by collecting usage data, by, fingerprinting TV watching and all that kind of stuff. And so they can sort of like Nielsen rating type stuff. So there's like that subsidy that gets built in that helps them charge less for the televisions. They get into more homes, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason for this $80 mug to have to be subsidized by using my data. And if people who are early adopters who gladly go and buy stupid things they don't need, I'm sorry, you know what I mean. But if for people who go and buy all the stuff that they really don't need, to say this is expensive, then I think it's a little too expensive to be trying to subsidize it with this data collection. So yeah, I guess my point is, folks, just pay attention to the data that's being tracked, and don't ever, even in the case of there's no reason why this mug should be collecting this data, but it is. And so don't ever say, well, there's no reason for this app to be being nefarious or to be collecting more data than it needs. Just try to pay attention to that stuff as much as possible, just so you can, keep it safe. And this app has a tie-in with Apple Health, and I haven't even tapped on that button because I don't even want to go to the page where it says, yes, you can sync these, but I'm afraid to even interact with that, because if it's asking for more than just caffeine intake, then it's pulling from my Apple Health data account and syncing. It's just gross. It makes me look at this mug and sort of give it side eye. What do you want to know about me? And what are you going to do with that? So I don't know if I'm going to be using it much anymore. A friend of the show, friend of Mobile Nations, Florence Ion, sent me a link to a Mr. Coffee mug warmer and was like, you might try this instead. And I'm like, you know what? I might try that instead. $10, and it doesn't know anything about me and never will.
Well, if that's the case, there's a lot of smart things or connected things that we're going to have to start throwing in the garbage.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. I'm going to go around the house and start asking, why does this pet cam need to know my health data for the amount of calories I burned today?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Does this pet cam bring me joy? Or does it steal my
does
data?
Does it spark joy or does it not?
Yeah.
You know what sparks joy, Lori Gill?
What's that?
Thrifter sparks joy.
It does.
Thrifter is an awesome website and service that helps you track down the best deals. These are real deals. None of those, 20% off, but actually it was never 20% more. We're just trying to make money off of you stuff. No. These are real save you money kind of deals. And that's available at thrifter.com. If you head to thrifter.com and sign up, you're going to get thoughtfully selected deals sent right to your email every single day. There's a newsletter that is the curated best of the best in any given day. And you can head to the website or go to @ThrifterDaily on Twitter to sort of get the fire hose of all of the stuff. So Lori Gill has gone on over to thrifter.com to look for a good deal. Lori, what have you got for us?
So speaking of battery cases, if anybody is still on board with their iPhone 7, it does work with the iPhone 8, but it's not official on their site that it works with the iPhone 8. You can get it for almost $20 off. You can get it for $81.17. That's a pretty good deal. Maybe it went on sale at Christmas, but I don't usually see the smart battery case on sale. So this is kind of a nice little way for somebody who wants smart battery case, the old version for the iPhone 7 and iPhone 8, even though that's not the official, it's not officially stated as iPhone 8. You can just get it for a little bit less. It's normally $99. It's $18 off right now. It's a good deal.
Yeah, very good deal. And one other, if you're looking to get into podcasting, a lot of folks quite love the Blue Yeti microphone. It's the microphone that I used to use before I upgraded, and it is a fantastic microphone, and even a good one for traveling around and about if you need one on the go. So I've seen plenty of people talk about how great that is. And right now it's normally $110 and it's down to $85. So if you've been thinking about getting into podcasting and you're just wanting to make sure you've got a good mic to get you going, that is a pretty good deal for a pretty good microphone. So again, you can head to thrifter.com to sign up for thoughtfully selected deals. You can head to Thrifter Daily on Twitter, or head to Thrifter CA if you're in Canada, or Thrifter UK if you're in the UK, and follow those accounts to get those deals. Thanks so much to Thrifter for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. Whew, Lori Gill, what are we talking about next?
Oh, let's dip into iOS 13 a little bit.
Lucky number.
Is it out? Did we miss something? I'm looking for Joe's post.
Yeah. So iOS 13 is here. Actually, it's iOS 13.1.
Stop it.
Developer beta has just shipped.
No. Don't listen. Nobody. All of that information is wrong.
I better go put that in the Slack right now.
Android Q that we're excited about right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Android. Quick.
I think Russell had a theory a long time ago that we're not always going to get desserts.
What?
So that's the thing, was that a long time ago, Google said that they were not desserts. They were tasty treats. And so it could be theoretically in the future that there is a food stuff that a version of Android gets named after that is not strictly speaking a dessert. That has not actually happened yet, but that is something that was made clear a while ago.
What is it going to be? And if it's not quinoa, what could it be?
What else starts with Q that's food related at all?
I guess you could do like lowercase Ness, uppercase Quick.
I feel like Alex Dobie had a bunch of British desserts that none of us would even know or want to eat.
It's a quandary with a Q. Quandary. Right, okay, let's talk about iOS 13.
iOS 13 lies, Lori. Which moron is spreading iOS 13 lies?
I don't know. There's some guy out there who's talking about what he wishes and hopes for an iOS 13.
So I got to be clear. It's not like, this is not what Apple has already settled iOS 13. They started working on that when iOS 12 shipped. So that, there may be some things in here that are in iOS 13, but that would be happenstantial. What I wanted to look at is a lot of people keep saying it's time for iOS to grow up. And for what may not be as well known is that there was a sentiment by some inside Apple that iOS 6 was like the most we'd ever need. They said like no AirDrop, that's too confusing for people. We have to keep it simple. And then when Craig Federighi took over, he made things a lot nerdier. He was not afraid. to sort of ship those things. And so we started getting things like extensibility and continuity, what I think are like foundational technologies in iOS that are super important. But there's others we haven't gotten, and there's various reasons for that. But there's some that I think are super important that we just need. And like some of them are just, you know, to keep up with the cool kids in Android at the cool school, things like a theme kit and a font kit, so that I can have a turquoise phone with Comic Sans if I really want it. No, but I mean, like, there are some custom, but there's also other things. Like, it's easy to add Files app, to add external storage to Files app, but there's no userland drivers for iOS. So there's all sorts of cool accessories now that we're getting USB-C, that instruments, scientific and musical, that could be made, that you'd have to wait until Apple added support for them, or just be stuck in a specific app. But if there were driver extensions, those could be anywhere. We have a keyboard, but you know, people complain there's no touchscreen on the Mac, but then they complain there's no trackpad on the iPad Pro. And it's not that people are capricious or contradictory. It's that you want to keep your hands where they are. Like, you know, like there's just some things that are easier to touch and some things that are easier to type. And having a sense of a pointer in iOS would be great. Like if I gave my phone to Russell because and Lori because we're at CES, I want to be able to give it to them without Lori suddenly changing my tax information, or Russell going, "Ooh, I'm mailing all these photos out." So like there's like an idea of a guest board where you could give someone a browser and a telephone without giving them your whole phone, or having every app have the option to have biometric or passcode authentication. You know, so a customs agent, you give them your pass, your boarding pass, but they can't get to anything else on your phone. Just those little things. So I think there are a bunch of steps that I don't want the iPad to become the Mac or Windows. I think that computers evolved at a time when we were all figuring this stuff out, and there's a bunch of things that no normal human should ever be subjected to, that come from the dark days of early computer science, that are great for like when 10 geeks were the only people ever using computers, but it's just not sustainable for the mainstream. But I think there's functionality that we could reimagine in a modern context that would make these tools so much more powerful for so many people. And that's sort of like what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I love all of these ideas. Actually, one thing that you didn't mention that I think is a really great idea is lock screen complications, sort of the way they are on your watch, so where they're just these sort of little dots that you can tap into and get some information without a lot of information without having to unlock your screen.
Face ID now, so like it knows when you look at it. So before you touch it, you can just look at it, and suddenly your calendar could open up. The next TV show you wanted to watch could open up, and it could just show you those things. My whole thing is that interface needs to become push. Pull interface is so, I don't know, 1980s. I shouldn't have to go look for stuff. And notifications are fine, but they're event driven. Like you have to send me a text message, but there's stuff I want to see that's not event driven. Like I just want to know that stuff, and it should be wherever I want it. I shouldn't have to go hunting around for it on my screen like a monster.
It's also okay for that information to be nonsense. Like my favorite thing about just the absurd level of complications on the new Apple Watch designs is that I filled it with mostly silly crap that I just look at because it makes me happy. Yeah. Like the lunar calendar or where all the planets are in the solar system, knowing that like that information does not change from day to day. I can just look at it and be like, hey, look, that's where Mars is. And like, that's just a thing that makes me happy. And it's just one of the random complications that you can stick on an Apple Watch. And I would totally do stuff like that to the lock screen on an iPhone, you know, just like there's obviously a need for kind of the important stuff to be able to have there as kind of passive things that are feeding data to me. But also just, you know, sometimes whimsy is cool.
Urban Dictionary word of the day. I want that now.
Yeah.
Sometimes whimsy is cool. That's just a good quote, actually. So I remember a while back for a video that I did with a friend of mine at the time for work, we went for, I think, a month. Each of us switched to Android and tried it out because we were both iOS users, and we switched to Android for a month. And the thing that I loved the most about Android was the ability to customize my home screen. I could have my calendar right there. I could make it as big as I wanted or as small as I wanted. I could make the time nice and large. I could have all sorts of fun widgets there. And I know that, you know, iOS craves simplicity and I think simplicity and like beauty. So I don't know, and the rare opportunity that someone's phone gets captured in then like it's still it could be a marketing image because it's perfect in every way. But I would love to be able to customize my home screen. I'm bored of just having these little tappable buttons there that at the very most I can peek into with 3D touch, which I don't use so much for those peek and pop options.
Renee?
Yes.
Why hasn't Apple made dark mode for iOS?
I think they were waiting for a theme kit, because dark mode, you can already do it with the accessibility features if you do smart invert colors, but that only sort of fixes dark mode. And I really think Apple needs to go beyond that and have a theme kit so that you could make it cool, like bluer or yellow or red, or like you could have not like total zaniness, like maybe not Arrow Wagner level customization or any of these things, but you could have like not bring back pinstripes or bring back brush metal or bring back stitched leather.
Come on,
madness. But you could create a framework where developers, because like apps are a big thing. Like if you do a dark mode, how are apps going to react to it? I think it has to be done on the SDK level. There has to be a kit behind it. Developers should opt into it. If they're using UI kit already, it would just work. But then also they could make themes maybe that would also work as theme extensions and would work across the platform as well. Like everybody wants dark mode until you get it, and then you have it like on Mojave, and it's like, oh, it's the middle of the day and it's dark mode, and I'm feeling oppressed now, so I'm gonna switch it back to light mode, and then I'll go back to dark mode at night. And so it's like not a, you want it because we don't have it, but I think there's a case to be made that we need something better than just dark mode.
Yeah, so I think
transitions.
Yes,
I think that's. I just went and did smart invert on my phone, just to play around with it for the evening and see how it works, and I absolutely loved it. And then immediately wanted to go back to the regular view that I'm used to, and part of that is because it's not just doing like smart invert. It's not a well-designed display. It's not a well-designed theme across all of the apps and all of the things that the services and things that are already on my phone. And I think that you can't just flip a switch and you have iOS dark mode. There's so much more involved, and so much more involved than what we use as dark mode on macOS Mojave too. Phones are a lot different in the way things are brought up and presented to us and like put in the background, the way we interact with it and the gestures we use with it and everything. So I think, what was that?
Windows don't layer like they do on macOS. It's all full screen all the time.
Yeah. So if you just like turn it dark, you're not getting a pleasant experience. And I think that, like what you're saying, Renee, is so dead on. It's that they don't want to give us dark mode until they can really nail it and get it right and make it accessible for other developers to properly present us with a dark mode that looks good too, that it's all interactive and all encompassing.
My guess also is that there was supposed to be a big iOS redesign, like Springboard and everything was supposed to get a big redesign last year, and it got pushed off so they could do the performance. And they were not going to ship the new dark mode for the old interface because that's a lot of work for something that's about to be canceled. So when they do the redesign, either the same year or the year after, I'd expect it. But I want to just zone in on what Russell said, because transitions are huge. There have been some demos. I think Bob Burrows did one recently where they use the input from the iPhone sensors to understand the environment and then make the interface match that. So lighting comes from where lighting is actually coming from. And as you move the phone, like not enough to bother you, but as you move it like into a light area, it gets brighter, a dark area, it gets darker. As you turn it, where the buttons are highlighted or shadowed change subtly so that your phone feels like it's part of the environment. And that sort of goes to what you were saying, Lori, that the phone is different. It's not sitting on a desk or on your lap. It's always moving. And then that just brings everything to even more life.
I want my phone to be a mood ring. I want the interface to serve me things based on the environment around me and whether I'm angry.
Your phone would just be black the whole time, though.
You're squeezing your phone a lot right now, Russell. So we turned the interface a little red.
Or better, it turns it like a nice light pink to try and calm you.
Just something to take you back a notch. You're a little antsy right now.
Oh boy. And default apps. Let's be able to change those. If I don't use Safari and I use Chrome, then I should be able to use Chrome. And if I don't use Apple Maps, then I should be able to use my Maps application. If I don't use Mail, let me use my Mail, etc.
And it's complicated because you have like embedded mail sheets and you ask Siri to look things up, and developers would have to make all those elements. It would have to do all those jobs. Like Chrome would have to build the Chrome share sheet and the Chrome Siri result. Like, and all of this is possible. It's just they would and then those apps that did it would they would qualify for one of the options in your default settings. But I think it's good for Apple too, because Apple would have to compete on making good apps. And like I know people disagree with me. Google makes fantastic services. The apps themselves, they're often really outdated and aren't always great. Services are fantastic. Microsoft makes great apps. The services aren't always as good as Google, but they do make some really nice apps. Not always, but they do make some really nice apps. But Apple should have to compete with all of them for default status and show that, oh, we're using machine learning, we're doing privacy, we're doing these features that should make you want it more, not just because you can't get rid of it. It'd be good for the app teams.
Very well said. I think that's going to cover it for iOS 13. Last but not least, Russell had something that he wanted to share with us.
Yeah. So of the people in the Mobile Nations family, I am the 360-degree camera nerd, just because I think they're fun. And I got one just before CES, and I got to play with it a bunch at CES. It is unlike any other 360-degree camera I have used. It is called the Views XR camera. And on its face, it's got kind of a really similar design to most 360-degree cameras, in that it's actually two different lenses with two different sensors. And they sit on either side of one another, and they're fisheye lenses. So they take pictures at the same time, and then it kind of stitches those two fish bowls together to create the sphere. So you have a two-dimensional sphere that you can look in, and you know, kind of a normal camera mount on the bottom, so you can put it on a tripod, and you don't have to be standing there and holding the camera in order to take pictures. You can have some fun with it. It does 5.6K video, so you can, you know, kind of get some fun video to share in places. The app for it is actually pretty nice. But for people who like to take pictures and see them in virtual reality headsets, 360-degree lenses that are kind of the base model, kind of intro level, they're two-dimensional. So even when you put the virtual reality headset on, you're still looking at a 2D picture. It's just a sphere of a 2D picture. Mm-hmm. And so to fix that, there's a fun little button on the back of this camera. And when I push it, it actually takes the two cameras and faces them out to a pair of eyeballs. And it actually creates a 180-degree picture instead of a 360-degree picture, but it does it in 3D. So now the picture that I have taken is everything that is immediately in front of me, but it has actual depth in the picture, so that when you view it in a virtual reality headset, you actually get the sense of depth from that 180-degree view. So you can feel like you are actually standing in the place where the picture was taken.
Is that a Sonic? Looks like a Sonic.
It does kind of look, yeah. The joke that I have made through this is that it actually looks like an old clunky version of the Neuralizer from Men in Black.
Yes.
So I can
just flashy thing us.
That's right.
I don't remember what you just said.
That's right.
Is the camera that you? Is it the camera that you used to get that amazing video of the Google ride that is up on Android Central? We'll link to it.
So there's a weird roller coaster. There was a real roller coaster at CES, and in order to really kind of capture that, Alex Doby and I sat in the front of the little dark ride that they put together. We sat in the front of the coaster and very, very slowly and carefully passed the camera back and forth to one another to get that depth capture of that ride, and it was a lot of fun.
I didn't realize that you had actually been handing it back and forth to each other. I just was like, wow, this is amazing. I can see everything over here. I can see everything over here. I didn't realize you guys were actually trying to navigate that together.
In some parts of the ride, everything was over on one side, but then it would very quickly put everything over here to see stuff. And so we're just very, very carefully moving the camera back and forth, because when you're watching, especially in virtual reality, that kind of unnatural motion can make someone sick very quickly. And so there was kind of a very kind of slow, deliberate movement. And I was really proud of the work that we put into making that video, because it was something that we did very kind of last minute, spur of the moment thing, and it worked so well.
It was really great. I didn't watch it in virtual reality because I was just too lazy to go get my Oculus. But I just used my cursor and just scrolled back and forth on it, and it was really great. And we will definitely link to it because it's really fun. And honestly, I love dark rides, and I thought the ride was super great. I was totally into it.
Yeah, they did a very good job, and they just a shameless plug for every single one of their products. It was it was definitely an appropriate thing for CES.
Yeah, but if you're going to shamelessly plug your products, that is a really fun way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, folks, we have had quite the ride today.
Not as cool as Google Ride, but
not
quite the ride.
Exactly. Nothing will ever be as cool as that. But it is time to say goodbye. Thanks so much to all of you for listening. Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Appaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And at Lori Gill at most of the other social things.
Renee Ritchie, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
Hiding behind my desk, but otherwise at Renee Ritchie on the social things and youtube.com/Vector Show for the funny little videos and such.
Beautiful. And Russell Holly, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
I am at Russell Holly pretty much everywhere.
Excellent. If Georgia Dow were here, she'd tell you could find her at anxiety-videos.com, where you can check out videos that help with emotional intelligence, depression, anxiety, a whole host of things a whole host of videos to help you with all sorts of things, as well as occasionally, very, very, very occasionally, at Georgia_Dow on Twitter. If you're looking for me online, you can find me at Micah Sargent for most social things, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, which has links to all the things I do. You can find all of our writing over at iMore.com and on other Mobile Nations sites. Jim Metzendorf, thank you so much for editing the show and making us sound beautiful every week. We will, of course, be back next week with more for you out there, depending on when you're listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week or weekend. This has been The iMore Show.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us. It's always so much fun.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Stopping the broadcast
From CES already.